How do you rebuild trust in your relationship? That is what we're going to be talking about today. So we hope that you will stay with us and stay tuned. Pull up a chair, call your friend, call your spouse, share this link with your friend, your family, someone you know who would benefit from this. Welcome once again to another Family Talk Live with the
Dookies.
This is Sanya Duki and
Courtney Dookie.
my lovely husband, my teammate, my friend, my everything. And we're happy to be once again with you this evening, this Monday evening, where we're going to be discussing common issues that impacts family life.
Yes.
And for the past couple of weeks, we've been focusing on how to rebuild our relationship. So today is part 2 of that conversation that we started 2 weeks ago, which was how do you forgive and rebuild trust in your marriage?
And just to continue what you said there, when we transition from forgiveness,
Yes.
also look at rebuilding trust.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like trust is a common topic that keeps coming up. No, we have spoken about trust so many times
Yeah.
in relationships. We have done other talks on trust and how to build trust.
Mm-hmm.
But when people request things for us to talk about,
Yeah,
keeps coming up.
we talk
Trust,
about it again. Yeah.
Communication, forgiveness.
Yes.
These are big ones.
Yeah.
Infidelity, will hint at that a little bit today. But those are the things people keep bringing up. And what in the research we're seeing: trust, communication, infidelity, forgiveness, money, sex. These are big topics
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be amongst the top 10 topics that seems to cause a lot of relationships
Yes.
to deteriorate or to struggle.
Yeah.
So it is good that we're talking about it.
Yes.
And for those who request this, thank you so much for sending your request.
Yeah.
That's what we hope for. We hope that you will see us, you will share this, so we can get topics from you.
Yes.
Relevant topics from you.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to just talk about any topics on our show.
Yeah.
We want it to be relevant for you.
Yes.
So ask a question, send in your topics.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not your topic. Maybe it's a topic that will address something for someone else,
Yeah.
Send that topic too, and we will seek to address it. So again, we're talking about building trust.
Building trust.
How
today.
to do that, and a little bit about recovering from infidelity.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Definitely.
We're seeing the statistics on infidelity is very high,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to about that 7-year mark in our relationship.
So we're going to dig deeper into this. For those who are joining us live, let us know where you are joining us from. And for those who are just watching us for the first time, just a little bit about us here. We are psychotherapists. We have our local private practice where we're living, but we've answered also the call to be able to reach out to the Christian community, where we provide Christian marriage and Christian parenting training and coaching and counsel. And we also speak. We also go to churches and different organizations and offer support in that way as well. And so last year we started Dookies Institute, which is an organization dedicated to transforming family life.
Yes.
Through restoring your marriage, restoring your parenting, and also rebuilding or strengthening your family altar. So thanks again for joining us. Welcome, Erica. Good to have you. Good to have you on here. So as we mentioned, today we're talking about trust. Our last video, we spent a lot of time on forgiveness. So if you missed that one, go back to our previous lesson or previous session. And you can see what the teachers are in here. And watch what we talked about. That was a very deep conversation. So go back there, talk about, listen to what we talked about, and then you'll see how these come together. So we had a follow-up from last session. We had a follow-up question, and we were talking about forgiveness, and the question was, what if I keep forgiving and giving chances? And my spouse can't seem
To get it?
to get it to get it. I keep giving chances, but it's not getting better. What do I
Well,
do?
well, the first thing is to find out. I like to find out as to why.
Mhm.
The why behind the spouse not getting it, and also the reason you want your spouse to do the thing that's there, right? So when I think about forgiveness or why this person keep doing this thing that I need to keep forgiving him or her for this thing, there are two subjective realities
Mhm.
to that. And oftentimes I'm curious to hear those subjective realities because something is going on for the one who is doing the act,
Yeah.
and something is going on to the one who is experiencing the act in a negative way.
Mhm.
And sometimes just understanding those subjective experience can be a place to start a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so rather than saying, hey, you do this, forgive me. Okay, I forgive you. You do it again, I forgive you. And we go back with this back and forth of forgiveness.
Mhm.
It's sometimes more important to stop there, take a step back,
Yeah.
peel off another layer. What is going on for that person why they keep doing that?
Mhm.
What is going on for you why experience it like that when they do that thing? Maybe in another couple's relationship it'd be different.
Yeah.
Also, as you peel the layers back, you may find that your partner is doing something that is ingrained.
Mhm.
In our work, we talk a lot about developmental trauma,
Yeah.
that people function out of what we call implicit
Mhm.
memory. An implicit memory are these, it's memory that is not in conscious awareness, but it manifests in conscious awareness,
Yes.
right? And sometimes your partner is doing things and they're saying sorry, and um, they're sincere about saying sorry,
Mhm.
but they keep doing the same thing. It's
Yeah.
like Paul says in Romans chapter 7, the things I want to do,
Yes.
I don't find myself doing them. Or the things I should be doing, those are the things I find myself doing.
Mhm.
And sometimes the trauma, the past experiences we've
Yeah.
had, we do things constantly like that. So you ask the question, when do I stop forgiving? Well, it's not about, the question is not do I stop forgiving. The question is how can we address the
Mhm.
underlying
Mhm.
concerns
Yeah.
that are causing this to happen.
Yes, and that's that's where we come from. That's where we come from. I mean, like that's deep. So we can really online here we can only speak of things in general
General,
terms.
yes.
But when we work with individuals one on one, we go to the depth, the root. Let us see if there is something that you need to heal from first before we try to let you change this behavior,
Yes.
because if you're just changing this behavior and we haven't dealt with that issue, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be frustrating for your spouse, it's going to be frustrating for yourself, you're going to feel like a failure, right?
Easy.
And so that's one of the questions that we would ask: what is the deeper issue here? And sometimes it's not about you and the fact that whether they love you or not. Sometimes it's them problem. Sometimes it's something that they need that support with, and it's also very good to have a conversation from that perspective as well. Sometimes we can even ask ourselves the question, why do I struggle with
With
this?
this.
Is this a them problem, or is this something that I need to work through? Am I having deep insecurity or ambivalence about my relationship? And because of that, it thwarts my interpretation and my reaction towards my spouse, and that causes them to be pushed away, and it creates a whole cycle there. So yeah, we hope that that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ask what is the deeper issue here, have that conversation, and please do it in a gentle way. Like, okay, let's talk. I realize we're having this struggle, this thing going on. um let's not focus on just the behavior stuff. I want to know why. Like, is
Right.
there a struggle that's is there something going on that we haven't been aware of? And we ask that you have that conversation prayerfully.
Yeah.
Prayerfully. David, he says, search me, oh God, and see if there be anything in me. And it's the same perspective that we need to have when we're having these conversations.
And also, just to add to what you're saying, Sana, it's one of the things we teach couples how to speak with each other,
Yeah.
and even in situations when it's very intense or painful, we talk about speaking to each other with grace. Allow your conversation to be seasoned with grace, and there's a whole process
Yeah.
that we take couples through in graceful communication. And
Mhm.
what graceful communication look like, how to initiate graceful communication, and how to maintain what are the contents and components
Mhm.
of graceful communication. Because sometimes we just need to learn to speak to each other
Yeah.
with grace.
Yeah.
We can start things we heavily disagree over
Mhm.
if we start it gracefully.
Yeah.
Or we can have, if we control it. The Proverbs talk about controlling a
Controlling your
speech,
tongue.
and
Yeah.
James talk about controlling the tongue. So there's ways and means to do these things
Mhm.
so it doesn't get worse. So one, we're going to work on ourselves. If there's past trauma, why this thing impact me, so why my partner doing this,
Yeah.
and how do we communicate this to them.
Yeah.
And those are all pieces we have to take into account when it comes to working with forgiveness. So forgiveness is really
Yes.
a deep topic to get into. Sometimes we think, oh, you forgive me for this, and like, okay, sure, I forgive you. No, sometimes it's deeper than that.
Mhm.
And even the question that came about, the question asks, how often, how long do I keep forgiving?
Yeah.
The reality is, if we are not doing anything, and this is the reality, listen to me carefully. If we are not doing anything to address the primary causal root
Mhm.
of the problem, we're still going through the cycle of action, forgiveness, action, forgiveness, action, forgiveness,
Mhm.
because we have to address the primary concerns.
Mhm.
And it's vital that we seek to address that primary concern prayerfully and with an open heart.
Yes. So we have a question, a follow up. So after years of forgiving or asking for forgiveness, it can start to feel hopeless. How do you
Yes.
bring the hope back?
Right.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I'm saying here. Thank you for that question. How do we bring the hope back? Again, if we are not addressing the primary causal root,
Yeah.
the cycle continues.
Mhm.
It's like every time if you have a cut and you're not addressing the primary cause of that cut,
Yes.
it keeps it, and it festers and it festers. And I agree, it gets worse over time. If we don't address that primary reason,
Mhm.
it gets worse over time.
Yeah.
Right? So the recommendation is to find out. And I know this can be hard. Why? Because oftentimes we are not open to face our, I want to, the word that comes to mind is demons, but I don't believe in the demon thing.
Yeah.
So we're not open enough to face our own problems, our own pain points. We need to be
It's
open to
hard.
face. It's
It's
hard
hard.
to
Yeah.
face our pain points. Now, I'll give you an example. This is a simple example, but I think it may worth something. There was a couple I was working with, and it's the proverbial toilet seat.
Mhm.
And the one partner frequently forget to close the toilet, and the other one is like, you need to remember to do this, and they always get into an argument over it and fighting over it. And when they really get down to understand what's the root behind this,
Mhm.
because every time the partner who's not closing the lid will say, "Forgive me." I know this is a simple example, but just hear me out on this one. The
It's not simple for some people.
it's not simple for some people. Yeah, it's where when they get to the depth of the conversation led to this. For the husband need to understand why closing the toilet seat lid was important, right? And what it does to this lady, it creates a state of anxiety in her body. And in her body, it seems like the entire home was messy and things were out of line, even though it was just a toilet seat that wasn't closed. But it creates an intense anxiety for her.
Mhm.
So when the husband get to understand deeper that this was not just about a lid up or down,
Mhm.
it was causing something psychologically to be triggered in his wife, that caused a shift. So now before it was, it's a toilet seat. Why be so mindful about it?
Mhm.
It's
It's not a
simple.
big
It's not a
deal.
big deal.
Yep.
And that's how he approached it.
Yeah.
But for her, the way how she grew up, the home she grew up in,
Yes.
and the way how she was cultured, it makes it, closing the lid was very important.
Mhm.
Therefore, when the husband started to understand more the depth of why that was important, the anxiety that was going on there, eventually he approached it. Every time he sees a toilet seat, because he loves and he cares for her, he sees something different. He doesn't see a nagging partner anymore. He
Mhm.
sees someone who is psychologically being impacted
Yeah.
by this thing. So that's what a simple, again, I'm not saying it's not simple, but that's just an example
Yeah.
of how the depth of where this thing can go.
Yeah. Yeah, Erica is saying exactly so. The root cause needs to be addressed, but some people are not open to even looking into that.
Yes, true.
Yes.
And that's why when you talk about godly marriage is about searching,
Mm-hmm.
right? Search me, oh God. You notice there was a search them, oh God.
Yeah.
Our search, David always talks negative about his enemy, right? If you read the story, the Psalms, David is always saying things about the enemy. But notice when David says here, he never says go search the other person. Couples relationship needs to be based on individual searching.
Yeah. And it's a continual activity as
Yes.
well.
If it's a if we desire for our marriages to be godly, and that's why part of the program that we do, we talk about restoring a family altar.
Yeah.
Because when the family altar is there, it brings humility. You see, humility brings a level of self searching.
Mm.
Self searching brings repentance. Repentance has both a relational and a psychological and a spiritual and a physical healing component
Yeah.
to repentance. And that's where marriages need to go. Again, I know speaking in ideal terms here. However, if we sincerely humble ourselves, this idea about not open to address or looking into those things will change, because we will see our brokenness.
Yeah.
We are broken cisterns, and God desires to mend us. But we have to surrender within the relationship, within the marital connection, be open, and God can start that work. And that's how we implore couples to listen to things like this, connect with someone, because we need to address
Yeah.
those underlying things. Erica,
Yes.
thank you so much. And you're
Yeah.
absolutely
Wonderful
right,
question.
but we just need to connect more.
Yes. So, guys, let's move on. I think we could talk about this the whole evening, but of course, if you have any questions or follow up from what we're saying so far, please continue to share. We're watching the comments
Yes.
below. So, trust, trust. So, we've breached that trust, and it's years and years. I don't even trust you anymore. I don't even come close to me right now,
Mhm.
because whatever you say, it's gonna just I don't trust what you're about anymore, because of the years and years of fighting, and you're promising. That's one aspect of it. The other one is infidelity. That's the one we are very reactive right away about.
Yes.
When it comes to the small issues, I think we addressed that in the first session.
And they're all connected in some weird,
Yeah.
amalgamated ways, right? When you think about trust, if trust is not in the relationship, then it oftentimes opens the door
Mhm.
for either sexual infidelity or psychological infidelity.
Mhm.
Infidelity in general, right? So think of it like this. How do we build trust in our relationship? We build trust in our relationship not by big things, but by simple, day-to-day, mundane things. A mundane, don't take that word simple. It is what we call the turning towards or turning against. And turning towards is like the Gottmans would say. Turning towards is, and the Gottmans are relationship expert. They've studied this for over, I'm gonna say, 45, 50 years now. They've been working in this field, and they've studied couples. One of the things that they talked about is turning towards and turning against.
Mhm.
In the relationship, if we have more turning against than turning towards, then trust starts to break down.
Mhm.
And what is the difference between these two things? Well, turning towards, the example I normally use is that if Sanya is, say she's in the kitchen and she's looking out the window and she said, "Look at that beautiful bird." And if I says nothing, no acknowledgement, nothing at all, that's a turning away.
Mhm.
Turning towards would be something like, "Oh, sure, cool, looks nice." Doesn't mean it means much to me. Is that I acknowledge
Sure.
Sanya and acknowledge that she said something. Turning against, which is even worse. Turning against was like, why you show that to me? That's a stupid bird. Whatever. I was doing something and you distract me. That's more turning against. And when we have an offset in which we have more than turning against, turning away, trust starts to break down.
Yeah.
And you may say, but those are not big things, no, they're simple things.
Mhm.
Simple things. I think I'm using that word too much today.
You're using that word too much today.
There are those things, and when it comes to dealing with those incremental, miniature examples or day-to-day activities that we're going through, those things determine if trust is built
Yeah.
or trust is broken down. So if trust is broken down,
Mhm.
then over years, then it becomes where if every time you turn against me or turn away from me, I said, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
Just why bother allow this person in?
Mhm.
Why,
Why bother?
why bother?
Yeah.
They doesn't listen to me.
Yeah.
They don't participate in our day-to-day life. Why bother with this?
Yeah.
So that's where trust starts to be eroded.
And two people live in the house, that's very lonely.
Yes,
So there's
that
the
they
emotional
pull away from
detachment.
each other.
And I believe relationship, even though we need to be independent, but relationship in a relationship, a healthy one, we should have a level of dependence on each other as well. We should work together, and because of a lack of trust, sometimes we do our own thing. We
Yes.
start to do our own thing because we don't trust the other person to be reliable anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa, right? So everybody start to do their
Do their
own
own thing.
thing, and now that's where we're roommates because we just
Let's go there. And
yeah.
I'm glad they said here that hard to turn towards when trust has been broken. Absolutely right. And this is where we need to make this switch.
Mhm.
It's what I call in therapy. I use one of my kind of technique. It's catch, check, and change.
Yeah.
You know you catch it that you know what it is so difficult to turn towards my partner
Mhm.
because I don't trust him anymore. And how do we start to make a change? Both persons need to agree
Yeah.
to the changes. Again, there's so much. Even Gladys, a statement there. There's so much to that statement, and there's a depth of work that we go through with this.
Mhm.
There's a 6-part, 7-part series that we take couples through
Mhm.
to recover from multiple regrettable incidents.
Yeah.
And there's a process that we take couples through to rebuild that, but it's a sequence.
Yeah.
And then once you deal with those multiple regrettable incidents, we start to develop more of a positive sentiment over it, in which you start to infuse the relationship
Mhm.
with some positivity.
Yeah.
So when it comes to rebuilding trust, a part of rebuilding trust, to get to some of what Gladys is talking about there too, a part of rebuilding trust when it's broken is our openness to start to turn towards our partner.
Mhm. I can tell you for sure. Growing up, I learned to shut down my emotions. My siblings will tell you I had this poker face. I probably still do have it. So when I got married, and we made this promise that if anything should happen in our relationship, I am going to work very hard to ensure that we get back on track. And he made that promise that he will work very hard to get back on track as well. So I think we kind of tricked ourselves there, you know. But it was a struggle for me when he did something that was undesirable. My natural inclination was to just shut down and have that anger inside of me. And I remember that promise. I said, okay, I need to deal with this. But I felt so uncomfortable because you don't talk about stuff. You just push it aside and stuff it, and you may get an attitude out of it, tomorrow or something. But I had to literally push myself to approach him. It was not easy at all, at all, at all. And I had to learn to do it where I'm not yelling or shouting either, because it's easier to do it that way. When you're
Mhm.
yelling and shouting, the fire is behind it. that is something that I had to learn. No, that's not the way to go about it. So imagine you're always stuffing your feelings, or even if you do express it, you're yelling or being really raged about it. And you have to say it in a gentle way and in a way where you're using your empathetic statement, something that we teach our couples as well. And I had to learn to do that. I had to learn to do that. And trust me, it was not easy at first, but over time, with practice, I can tell you every time we have those conversations, I we become closer. On the other end of the conversation, there's a certain level of vulnerability that we pass through, and the intimacy between us grew. I feel that way. We feel that way.
Yes.
Yeah, grew. And the other part too is, he had to learn to listen with his heart too, which is another story. But I'm just sharing my side. It's not easy. I do agree with you. Emotionally, you just want to be shut down because it's a defense mechanism.
Yes.
You're protecting yourself. But in the long run, just trying to do that hard thing and opening up
Open up
in a
enough, yeah.
genuine way, not in a, a disrespectful way, but in a genuine way. At least I was able to
Express that.
what I was going
And as we go, I think again, I think there will be a part three.
There's
to
a
this,
part three, guys.
because I think one of the things we to get back, we hint at it today, but that's around infidelity.
Yeah.
So I think we'll leave infidelity for next week,
Okay.
because there are a few things I want us to cover when it comes to rebuilding trust. And rebuilding trust, there's an acronym we use called ATTUNE.
Mhm.
And ATTUNE has to do with, first and foremost, awareness of my partner's negative emotion. So because of what happened in the relationship, because of the broken trust was broken, there are some negative emotions, either fear, anxiety, anger, frustration. There are some negative emotions that came because of the broken trust in the relationship, and we have to learn to be open to my partner's negative emotions.
Yes.
Again, open to it doesn't mean that my partner, and this is where it gets really tricky, and again, I must say again, we don't share these things to replace therapy. This is not therapy. If you see that as we talk about these things and you need to talk to a therapist or talk to someone who can guide you through this, go for it. This is not therapy. We're just sharing some things that needs to happen in order for the trust to rebuild. So awareness, that it's about tune, awareness of my partner's emotion. I have to be open to listen to those things.
Mhm.
Again, this doesn't also give my partner the permission
Yes.
to use the emotion to attack me. So again, I need to be open to listen to the emotion, but my partner don't have the right either to use the emotions to attack me. Therefore, this dance between my ability to listen to the negative emotions and also my partner's skills to communicate those negative
Yeah.
emotions. That's a skill that probably, if you don't know how to do that,
Mhm.
you need to build that skill.
Yeah, and it's a skill. It's something you have to actually practice.
Practice.
It's not natural unless you grew up in a system where it was done.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like the first stage of rebuilding trust, is getting into the deep pain. The other part of it is, once we get into the pain, we start to practice now that turning towards it again. Because once my partner shares the pain and I'm hearing it, we can now start to practice turning towards it. Right? We can start to show empathy towards our partner. And we're going to talk, and empathy is going to come up later on, but that's where it starts. It's just turning towards. And once we start to turn towards,
Mhm.
we got to get some understanding, some basically some tolerance, I should say. Tolerance. Tolerance is a big word,
Mm.
because when I'm battling with the pain of the past, it's hard to tolerate anything in the present. Again, when I'm battling the pain of the past,
Yeah.
it's hard to tolerate what's going in the present moment.
Yeah.
And this is where we pull ourselves into the present. Not that we need to work on the forgiveness. So we talk about forgiveness, the forgiveness for past pains.
Mhm.
But as we move forward in the relationship, we get to this place where we need to now focus on, we tolerate. We see this thing. It's tolerance has to do with my openness to recognize that this is a process, not an event.
Mhm.
Trust was broken down as a process of
Yeah.
breaking down. Now we're looking at rebuilding the same thing. Also, we need to have understanding.
Mhm.
show some understanding.
Yeah.
Understanding does not mean we agree. Just like the when you talk about the last one, which is empathy. Empathy doesn't mean you agree. It means that we're saying, okay.
Yeah.
And what this boils down to is where we started today, that there are two subjective realities. Two subjective realities. Can we seek to understand my partner's subjective reality? Understanding their subjective reality doesn't mean I agree with their subjective reality, but I'm seeking to understand where they're coming from. And from understanding, we get into this one, basically a non-judgmental and non-defensive response.
Yeah.
And this is profound, guys. Not many of us, again, this is another skill within itself, to develop a non-defensive response. Because oftentimes they're sharing their story, their subjective reality is like, no, that's not how it goes. That doesn't make any sense. This is how we get into the defensive mode. So we have to be open to want to understand, to listen to them, to understand, but also have non-defensive response. And the last one in the attune is empathy. Connect with them. So we talk about, again, let's go back and really quickly. We can come back to this. You can go back and listen to the video. We talk about awareness of my partners. If we're going to rebuild trust, awareness of my partner's emotion and my own emotion in working through this. Once we come to the awareness, we talk about turning towards my partner. Turning towards means I'm attuning to them. I'm going in to figure out what's going on here, why we are where we are, and how do we get to a different destination in our relationship. We develop some tolerance. Gotta tolerate it. I know it's been a lot. You've been there before. It's been painful, and I don't have time to tolerate this anymore. To rebuild trust, we gotta be open to something.
And we're not talking about abuse.
No, not
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. We don't talk. That's a whole different
That's
a different thing to talk about. Understanding, show understanding, and non-defensive response, and empathy. Attune. And through building this attune principle, attune system, it will start to rebuild trust in the relationship. And once we start to rebuild it, as they know, trust is something. It takes a moment
years to build,
and a moment to break. But I say that statement, and there's a part of it that I agree with, and there's a part I don't agree with, because that constantly turning away is not something that happened overnight. But sometimes something big comes in the picture, and that becomes the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. And that's how we look at rebuilding trust. Someone says, it's hard there. It's never a big problem. Yes, I agree with that. Shutting down is what I do too. Yes, because when we get into the pain, man, who wants to face those pain? When we get into that pain, we want to shut down. We want to retreat.
We're trying to protect
ourselves. But again, it's the openness to address those wounds. Because we don't open things up to address those wounds, man, it just keep lingering and keeps tearing away at us. And we're the one feeling those things. So
and
that's what I want to say about
shutting down as well opens up another aspect that we support. A big part of what we do actually, emotional regulation.
Yes,
it's helping you to be aware of that defensiveness that you have, why you need to protect yourself, and work through that so you're able to tolerate
things.
To go into a level of tolerance with your spouse. So this is it, guys. This is it. A lot of nuggets here. I'd say that once we start to practice some of these things, it can really enhance our relationship with our spouse. And so we really hope that you're blessed by this. And let us know if you have follow-up questions. We do look at your comments, we look at your questions, and we'll try to address them in the coming weeks.
Yes.
If you're interested in our coaching program or coaching support program, please reach out to me, send me a message, and we'll be happy to connect with you and to hear your goals and see how we can support you. And so that's it for now.
Yes, and we'll connect next week again.
Yes.
Stay tuned. Next week we're coming back to talk about infidelity.
Yes.
Recovering from infidelity. And we'll talk about that. We'll probably piggyback on forgiveness, trust, and then
Comes
talk about
together.
more about infidelity.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, share this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel,
Yeah.
subscribe to our get invitation to be a part of our Facebook group
Oh,
and connect with us.
by the way, guys, every Saturday we've started something in our private Facebook group, which is Christian Families, Marriage and Parenting God's Way. That's the name of our Facebook group. But every Saturday mornings, we have decided to go in and to focus on what the Word of God is saying. So we
Yes.
we do a short Bible study there, and we do prayer as well. So we'd like for you to join us. If you're not already in the group, just let me know. Actually, I'll put the link of the group below so you could join. And looking forward to seeing you in there and
Yes.
see you on Saturday.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye bye. See you guys next week.